Mr. Lowndes and Dennis, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for standing for election once again.
Well, I'll keep trying.
And we will get onto maybe some of the things that might have changed from when you previously stood for election in the past. But before we get onto those things, just first of all, if my memory serves from last year when I spoke to you last year for the hustings, had you just retired? Have I got that right?
No, that's 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yep.
Wow. And what was your, just for those watching, what was your employment history?
Premises manager at special needs school.
That's right, working in schools, which
Yep.
Well, challenging times at the moment, but I won't get into that for the moment. Can you remind those watching of your first Wimbledon game that you attended?
I can't remember the actual game, but it was 1953. Went down with my father.
At 1953 at
Yep.
Plough Lane. I think Stu was probably there. And who is your all-time favourite Wimbledon player?
Difficult to say. I would say myself, be Alan Cork.
Alan Cork is proving the winner in this question so far, these hustings, top man. So, right, let's get into it. We did do this. I had this conversation with you last year, but we shall repeat it again for present times. We want to clear this one up. If you are successful in being elected to the Dons Trust Board, how will you reconcile the roles of...
Hold on, I'm getting a bit of...
yes, interference on the line.
Interference, yeah.
We might have someone
say that again.
Mute. I'll start that all over, don't worry. A little bit of interference there. So, yes, if you are elected onto the Dons Trust Board, how will you reconcile the role you have currently as director of the ladies section with being a Dons Trust Board member?
As last time, I just stepped down from the ladies, still work obviously on the sidelines to help the ladies and girls sections, but obviously I'd have to release my job as a director.
Cool. Now, the ladies still do feature heavily in your manifesto.
Yes.
It's one of the more unique things about your manifesto. You say you wish the ladies to be at the highest level of the game. How long a project is that, given that finance is already in the women's game? If you look at what's happened with Manchester United's ladies and then being elevated to top flight status, already playing a large role, how big a project is it to get the ladies into the top flight? And also, what role can you play in that as a Dons Trust Board member?
The main thing is that the costs go away from us every year at the moment. Our main thing is to find ways and means of actually incorporating our supporters to actually believe in the ladies and in funding the ladies and girls. Technically, the ladies are obviously sponsored by the Dons Trust at the moment, but to get into the Super Leagues, we would need a minimum of $250,000 a year to actually even to stand still. In our level of football at the present moment, we've got clubs which are putting in lots, about 150,000. We've got Watford who put in 250,000. So technically, it's becoming harder and harder. And when Brighton went into the Super League, their players then joined Crawley Wasps, and so they were getting paid. Our ladies are still unpaid players, and it means that we would have to go more professional and become in line with the men, really. And we'd be looking for a minimum of every player would have to be sponsored to the tune of about £25,000 each per year. And then they would then work in the community and actually go to schools. That's my sort of project. But obviously getting there is, I still think it's realistic, but it's like everything else. It takes time, and you've still got to go up in the divisions. Although people like Manchester United, West Ham and that have actually bought their way through into that level. They were in our leagues, but they basically, because they put money in it, they were able to go straight into the Super League. And at the moment, we would never be able to afford that. The highest level we can go is about one level up, where we can hold our own. But even that's getting stronger and stronger.
Would you need the Dons Trust members to agree to financing by perhaps taking money from other areas of the club to make that your dream as you say in your manifesto, a reality?
I think the thing about it, we've got to say to our members, do they really want to be part of the female football? Because we're a community club, we will need to have a female presence. And it's a matter of what level the Dons Trust members would like to see us. At what level would they like to see us playing the Manchester Uniteds of this world? And I think it's one of the things that perhaps they could pay a separate figure. I always thought it'd be nice if we could put money on the season ticket, which would then give people the chance of watching the ladies playing at Plough Lane as part of their season ticket. So increasing the season ticket price, or even the Dons Trust price, so that we get an income from those areas.
Away from the ladies, other elements of your manifesto I wanted to speak to you about is fan ownership. You said that it's a duty to protect and promote the club as a fan-owned organisation. On that note, what were your views on the sale of the minority stakeholding to Nick Robertson? Was it the right decision? Would you go any further in what we give away in terms of ownership and voting rights?
I think the fact is that it is obviously a must have the Nick's money at that particular time, because we hadn't got anybody or enough people putting into the bonds and other areas to actually close the gap to get this stadium. I mean, I think the thing about it is now, once we get the stadium up and running after COVID and it starts paying for itself, I think we should look at just keeping our shareholding as high as we can. And so the fact is that we still stay as a fans owned club. It's a matter of then of the club itself, the stadium paying for itself, and having more income coming in from those avenues, getting the community on board, making certain that the ground is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day if we have to, making it a completely total business. And I think we've got to look forward to actually seeing that operation in full swing, because I'm sure it will pay for itself and I'm sure people will support it.
In terms of the promotion aspect of that, protect and promote fan ownership, what do you think we're not doing currently in terms of promoting our values as a fan-owned organisation?
I think the problem is that we've been bogged down by actually getting to the stadium, and we've forgotten to go out there and tell people that we are a fans-owned club. And the fact is we haven't promoted it in a way that it could be worldwide. I mean, we've got a fantastic history, fantastic opportunity, I believe, as a fans-owned club, to go out to other clubs throughout the world and get them to back us. You know, it's a model that obviously worked with Barcelona and things like that. And I think the fact is we should actually be looking at ourselves in a better way to promote. And the number of people we've got within our ranks of supporters, we need to tap into all those people and actually get it marketed far better than it is at the moment.
You mentioned in your manifesto the international overseas network of fans that you'd like to bring together and pull together. I think this is something you mentioned last year when you ran. Just remind us, how does that look to you? We have, as you say, we've got a substantial number of overseas followers. We've got very large following now in America because of John Green's interaction. So we've already made good use of that. What would you develop on those lines?
I think the thing about it, it's still it's not actually promoted or talked about enough within the club. We don't know who all the fans are and what countries they are in, and how they can actually expand it in those countries. I think we've got to look at it in a total light of saying that, look, if you live in Seattle, why can't you have a Seattle Dons group? Why can't you go to other towns in like Sweden? We've got very good members out there who can expand it for us, and we need to actually tap into them and give them the opportunities of doing it.
Thank you. Just this juncture, just to remind you, if you are joining, if you could just make sure your mics are on mute, just so we don't get any background noise interrupting. Dennis, You've also said in your manifesto, you've also talked about match day experience. How does that factor into your role as a Dons Trust board member, as opposed to being a member of the football club on the football club board, for example, or things that Joe Palmer, Claudia are not already doing?
I think, again, they need more help. I think they need more volunteers. And I think the fact is that we've got to go out and get more, be proud of our volunteers and make certain that they're up front and they're actually out there helping people, answering questions, looking at what they've got to offer, because there's a lot of people out there prepared to work for the club, but never been given the opportunity.
But what sort of roles do you think we're lacking then currently on a match day? What particular skills do you think are missing there or absent there?
Well, it's difficult to say, but I think the main thing is, how can we get those fans who are prepared to work, and what sort of areas we can get them? Why can't we do projects where those people, try and get, say, if you like, every family brings an extra person, or have a child's day where they bring them down, and there's lots of different things you can do. It's a matter of how we actually integrate the whole thing. I think the Dons, like the junior Dons and areas like that, can be expanded. But again, it's a matter of people. We need volunteers to do it.
Now, we've mentioned that last year you stood for election, you weren't successful last year. From your perspective, how has that changed your approach to standing this year? And did your relationship with the trust and the football club change over the past year? Have you looked at things that you'd change or would add to what you want to do should you be elected?
I think the thing that made me want to stand even more was the fact that the way we were short of money and we went out looking for outside people to come in without even considering our own people. And it proved by what Xavier and the lads did to actually get the bond up and running, that it proves that we have got lots of people within our club that we've never thought about asking would they be interested. And I still think that that really upset me, to think that we were going to sell out, and we don't want that happening at all.
I see a lot of what you're saying here comes back to what you said in your manifesto about making sure that voices are heard in the fan base. You talked about going to speak to people. Why is this not happening already?
I think the fact is that the club has grown so quickly, and they don't realise what they have got in their ranks. And perhaps it's a way that we go out to our fans and say, would they be interested in, for instance, if we're looking for a marketing person or to help in marketing or advertising, why can't we go out and talk to our fan base and find out if there's people out there willing to do things for us? I don't think we've ever asked people what they do, and perhaps that's what we should be asking, and whether they'd be happy to be put onto a database so we can plug into them when we require them for certain fields.
So if you were to be successful on this occasion, in 2 years' time, what would you like to think you would have achieved, and how would you measure your success over that period?
The success to me would be how great the Plough Lane has become and how we've integrated in with the community. If we don't do that, then I don't see a future. I think we've got to integrate into the community, make certain we do everything with the community in mind, get them to be on board fully round the stadium, and get them to use the facilities. And that would, to me, I'd walk away very happy knowing that my club is going to carry on forever.
And if you would be successful and elected onto the Dons Trust board, taking part in Dons Trust board meetings, what do you think the chair of meetings, what skills should they have, and would you factor yourself, or would you include yourself as someone that would be capable of chairing meetings?
I think the main thing with any chairman is got to actually take on board everybody around him is working with him, and oversee it. Technically, a chairman should sit there over and take in all aspects of what's required, and just run it and go with what is actually agreed by your committee. If you don't, if you go out on a limb and don't think about your fellow colleagues, then I think personally we're on a no-win situation. The future is of any chairman is to make certain that you get every area covered, and that the future is obviously there, and you have plans, and make certain that you don't deviate from those plans, and cover all avenues that need to be covered fully before you go out and, say, for instance, go out and find more money. You need to make certain that you go the right direction before actually thinking ever of going elsewhere.
Thank you, Dennis. At this point, at this juncture, I'll hand over to our glamorous assistant, or just assistant, George Jones. George, with viewer questions.
Yeah, first question, Dennis. It's about restricted actions at the club. Obviously, the current threshold for them to pass is 75% of memberships. This person wants to know, is that figure too high a threshold, too low, or is it about right?
It's one of these things which you'll have to decide on, and that's down to the membership. I personally think 75 is fine, but I mean, it depends on how successful the income of the stadium is for the future before you even consider reducing the 75%. It shouldn't move.
Okay. What do you think the role of the Lowndes Trust Board is in relation to its members and the football club?
I think the Lowndes Trust Board has to obviously basically make sure that it finances its club fully, and the members need to be on board with your Lowndes Trust. And I think the fact is the members of the Lowndes Trust need to be more active, because the members technically haven't had much say until things hit the fan. Then they suddenly wake up, and I think perhaps we've got to be proactive rather than reactive.
What do you think the Lowndes Trust does well at the moment?
What it runs well, you mean?
Yes.
Well, at the moment, it's obviously run well because the fact is we've got a stadium, and the fact is that they did listen to the fans, and they finished up getting the money to finish the stadium. So it's still going to be a challenge for carrying on for the future. But again, as long as they listen to the fans and speak to the fans beforehand, or should I say the members, because we are a members club, and we actually make certain we listen to them.
What will you do personally to work well with existing board members?
I will give them every support, and hopefully give some ideas that we may not have thought of.
And final question coming in for this one. What is the number one quality that you would be bringing to the board?
Quality, good question. Or basically loving football, loving the fact is that a community club, and making certain that I can put every effort into it and keeping it that way, and it doesn't deviate from the direction that I'd like to see the club.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, George. Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, before you go, quick question. When you hang your toilet roll next to your toilet, do you have it hanging over or under?
Under.
Under. Okay. Interesting. Dennis, thank you very much for your time. Very much appreciated you for standing, and we wish you all the best for the forthcoming election.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good luck to all the other candidates.